Welcome back to the show. I'm Vicki McKenna. 799-1130, the Kessler's Diamond Center line, 800-838-9476. So let me get to 3 myths that are going to end up being wrapped into all of the discussions on San Bernardino and Planned Parenthood and everything else. Go over the 3 myths that the left is going to peddle. Number 1 is that the United States is number 1 in murders globally. Myth number 2 is mass shootings happen here, number 1, more often and kill more people than they do anywhere else in the world. And number 3, most mass shooters are white males. Okay, go over all 3 of those myths here one by one. Is the United States really number 3rd in murders? I want to throw love to one of my Facebook posters, Walt Schrader, for getting me this link, getting me this information. Is the United States really leading the world in, or really number 3 in murders? No, it is not. Not even close. If you actually look at the data, which the left never does, what you will find is that the United States is number 8 if you count total homicides. But if you calculate homicides as a percentage of the population, we're number 114. So no, not in any way are we number 3 in global homicides. We are number 8 if you count total homicides. But if you do what most reputable statisticians do, calculate homicides per capita, we are number 114. 114. Remember that. Where's the data coming from? And I will, by the way, I have this linked up already to my social media if you'd like to go see it at my Facebook page, Vicki McKenna Show on Facebook. FBI Universal Crime Reporting data from 2014. Okay. So, no, we're not number 3 in murders. We're not number 1 in murders. In total homicides, we would be number 8, but we have such a massive population that if you calculate homicides per capita as a percentage of the population, we're number 114. I went over this before. I have some more details now. Do mass shootings happen here more than they happen in other countries? Do mass shootings kill more people here than they do in other countries? Thank you, Professor John Lott. The answer is no, they do not. The highest annual death rate in the world goes to Norway. The United States ranks 9th in frequency, and we are somewhere near 110 in mass shooting deaths per capita. So no, no, and no again. Norway has the highest annual death rate. Macedonia has the highest frequency. United States is, again, somewhere in the mid-100s on the tally on mass shooting. How about bombings? We don't get a lot of bombings in the United States. If you actually count mass homicide as opposed to only mass shooting, we don't even make the list because we don't have bombings. We had the Boston bombing. We typically don't have bombings. We had Oklahoma City years ago. We had the Atlanta bombings, and we had Kaczynski, the Unabomber. But we don't have a lot of bombings in the United States. We don't even really make the list of any countries of any concern to anybody when it comes to bombings. But there are way more people murdered in bombings, mass bombings, than there are in mass shootings. Last myth. White guys? White guys. Is it white guys who do this? Well, sure, some white guys do this. Do you know what? Some Hispanic guys do this. Some Vietnamese guys do this. Some Korean guys do this. Some black guys do this. thank you, Ann Coulter, for listing a partial list of some of the recent mass shooters, some fairly well-known mass shooters, who in fact were non-white. The most recent would be Joe Allen, only last week, engaged a mass shooting of 17 people at the Bunny Friend Park in New Orleans. Nobody heard anything about that. Bunny Friend Park in New Orleans, that was Joe Allen. He is black. Chris Harper Mercer, the guy who shot up Umpqua College, mixed race. Elliot Rodger, the guy who shot up Isla Vista in Santa Barbara this year, mixed race. You have Eduardo Cencion. Eduardo Cencion murdered 4 Americans, including 3 National Guardsmen, at an IHOP in Nevada. You might not have heard of him because nobody paid a lot of attention to him. Eduardo Cencion, obviously a Mexican immigrant, shot up an IHOP. Here is in 2012, Haitian immigrant Kessler Dufresne shot 3 people because he was angry in one day because he was angry. He was denied his immigration status. We had the Tsarnaev brothers, also non-white, who bombed the Boston Marathon. Nidal Hassan in 2009, shouting Allahu Akbar, opened fire, murdering 14 at Fort Hood. We had Javerly Wong, a Vietnamese immigrant, shot and killed 13 people in Bingham, New York in 2009. Didn't hear anything about that guy. He was upset because people were mocking his English skills. We had Sweng Wee Cho, who in 2007 shot up VTech, also non-white, Korean immigrant. We had Colin Ferguson, a Jamaican immigrant, who shot up the Long Island Railroad, left 6 passengers dead. Oh, I know, I'm not done. Vester Lee Flanagan opened fire on his fellow news workers and videotaped it in North Carolina. We had Chai Vang in Wisconsin, a Vietnamese immigrant, who murdered 6 hunters for reasons that I can't quite remember. John Allen Muhammad and Lee Malvo were the D.C. snipers. And, of course, Radcliffe Houghton, who murdered people at Azana Spa in a mass shooting. The only one I didn't list that was a mass shooting on that list was the Tsarnaev brothers, Boston bombers. So those are your 3 myths. United States does not lead the world in homicide. We are not 1, 2, or 3 in homicides. The United States does not even come close to leading the world in mass shootings, let alone mass homicides. We're not even close on that. And with regard to who the mass shooters are, not really much of a profile you can divine from any individual mass shooting or looking at them collectively. A lot of non-white guys committing mass shootings. But the left wants you to think, depending on what they're pushing at that particular moment, that the mass shootings are a white guy thing, and anybody who wants to defend their Second Amendment rights are nothing but a bunch of racists. Nope. That mass shootings are a U.S. thing, are an American thing, and that anybody who wants to defend their gun rights are a bunch of killers or unsympathetic sympathizers for killers, which is exactly what the Democrats did to Paul Ryan in a press release, said he was aiding and abetting terrorism and mass killers because he wouldn't support gun control that the Obama administration is demanding. And if you don't support gun control, then obviously you want the United States to lead the world in dead bodies. All of it's lies. It's easy to find. John Lott. If you want to know where to find John Lott's piece, you can find it today on National Review. If you want to know where to find Ann Coulter's piece, it's on Daily Caller today. And if you want to know where to find the information on murders that I was talking about, you can go to my Facebook page, Vicki McKenna Show, on Facebook, or my Twitter feed at Vicki McKenna. Please don't be emailing me for the links, because then I end up getting, 50, 60 people emailing me for the links. You can find the information today on dailycaller.com, nationalreview.com, or on my in fact, you can find all of it on my Facebook page, Vicki McKenna Show on Facebook. I'm not, pumping my own page, except I am. There's a lot of great stuff on my Facebook page. Lots and lots of great stuff on my Facebook page, so please give it a visit. My Twitter feed has the exact same things that I've linked to my Facebook page. So if you prefer to use Twitter, all the same stuff is there as well, at Vicki McKenna on Twitter. I'll be right back. Oh, I forgot a couple of the shooters, recent mass shooters, at least in the last handful of years. We had Suleiman Televic, a Bosnian immigrant who shot up the Utah Mall in 2007, and Salvador Tapia murdered 6 people at the Windy City Core Supply Warehouse in Chicago in 2003. Didn't hear about those. Most people didn't hear about those. The names are not top of mind. And then Armin was telling me he was trying to do a Google search real quickly for Vesterly Flanagan, the guy who murdered his news coworkers, his former news coworkers in Raleigh, North Carolina, and said that typing in, Raleigh news reporter murders or whatever you were not easily able to just come up with the name Vesterly Flanagan. Yeah. Trying to find some of this information piece by piece is a little tough. Ann Coulter does a nice job of putting most of them in her piece today at dailycaller.com. She didn't remember Chai Vang. She didn't reference John Allen Muhammad, Radcliffe Houghton, or Lee Malvo. And she didn't reference Joe Allen, the guy who just shot up the Bunny Friend Park in New Orleans. So she missed a couple, but she got a whole bunch, and she did a great piece of research on that. Because the left tries to distract from the common sense arguments on gun control. But what gun control policy could we have imposed? Another good question for conservatives to ask. What gun control policy could we have imposed that would have stopped Saeed Farouk and his wife, or his whatever she is, I think it's his wife, from planning and executing an attack on the social service center in San Bernardino? None of them had criminal records. Neither one of them had criminal records. What gun control would have been appropriate that would have prevented Saeed Farouk from legally purchasing a gun? How about the fact that Saeed Farouk had a semi-automatic .223 in San Bernardino, California? How did he get his hands on a semi-automatic .223 in San Bernardino, California, when California still maintains the holy grail of all gun control, an assault weapons ban? Because, of course, semi-automatic rifles that take .223 ammunition are assault weapons. San Bernardino is California. You know that. California has an assault weapons ban. So how does the gun control work on any of these situations? How? If you don't follow the law, you don't follow the law, right? How about this guy, Robert Deere, who shot up the folks outside Planned Parenthood in Colorado Springs? How's gun control? I mean, what possible gun control would have prevented this weird hermit who lived hand to mouth and had, petty crimes on his record? How would it have prevented him from just deciding? This is a guy who believed in lining his ceiling with tinfoil because he got the government was listening in on him. How would it have prevented him from going and murdering a bunch of people in Colorado Springs? Anyone? There's not a single gun control policy that would have prevented any of this, because gun control requires the fact, the assumption of law abiding. You assume people will abide by the law for gun control to work. Hey, felons, don't buy guns. Not allowed to. It's illegal. Don't buy guns. In California, how do you get that that quote assault rifle, that black rifle that's so scary that we need to ban? Well, they banned it in California. How'd you get it? Don't buy it. It's illegal. You assume people who want to commit crimes will abide by the law. Phil, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Vicki. I was down in Chicago, and I was listening to the progressive station. I know you've heard of Stephanie Miller. Her and her crew were touting the Australian gun buyback. They don't tell you it was forced, but they tell you it was a gun buyback program and how, successful it's been. They went off on a tangent about the nut job who shot up around Planned Parenthood and how he was a right-wing nut job. Facts mean nothing to people like Obama, Stephanie Miller. It doesn't fit. Facts don't fit the narrative.
No, it doesn't. You just lie. That's propaganda. You lie and then you keep repeating it, and then the journalists get together and they say to themselves, we're just going to keep repeating this. It will be very, very difficult for anybody to punch through the propaganda, so we'll keep repeating it. One more time. The guy who shot up around, again, he didn't enter the clinic. The guy who shot up around Planned Parenthood was not a right-wing nut job. He was a nut job, but he wasn't a right-wing nut job. He didn't care about religion. He didn't care about abortion. He was a person who was telling his neighbors to line their ceilings in tinfoil to prevent the government from listening to them, and was so angry at a barking dog that he shot it. This is a guy who had a habit of peering into his female neighbors' windows when they were undressing. He was a weird, creepy pervert without electricity and oftentimes without running water. This was not some guy who was sitting around trying to figure out ways to consume electronic media, which he did not have access to, so he could commit acts of violence in the name of the right wing. But you're right.
What?
They continually, by the way, an Australian gun buyback. Gun buybacks in the United States have been tried in Milwaukee multiple times. They have done exactly nothing. In fact, they don't even net guns that are ever used in crimes. Gun buybacks have been tried in California, in New York, in Miami. Pretty much every place has tried a gun buyback. They don't work, right? So what happened in Australia was not a gun buyback. What happened in Australia was gun confiscation. And that's what we need to tell. We need to tell everybody that that's what they favor is gun confiscation. Sending police officers to your door to raid your house and take your guns.
And the falsity of that, quote, gun buyback program is there are still firearms in Australia and are being used to commit crimes. They never always leave out that minor little fact, that little detail.
Homicides are up in Australia, not down. Violence is up in Australia, not down. Thanks, Phil. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. The idea of confiscation that fascinates the left so much. Again, why do they want confiscation? Because it weakens a nation. It makes law-abiding people essentially have to be afraid because there's nothing they can do to deal with the complete mayhem they see around them. They just have to cross their fingers and rely on their betters to protect them. But gun buybacks, how are they going to work in Milwaukee? Let's just think about the city of Milwaukee. So all the law-abiding citizens are going to turn in their guns. And because everybody knows all the law-abiding citizens aren't going to turn in their guns, police are going to have to extract the guns from the homes. How are police going to know what guns are in what homes? You're going to have, quote, universal gun registration. You have universal gun registration, then you know who has the guns, and the police know where to go to extract the guns. Who does not abide by the law that the left wants on universal gun registration? Who abides by the law and who doesn't abide by the law? Well, law-abiding citizens are going to abide by the law, and criminals are not going to abide by the law because what's the definition of criminals? People who commit crimes. Crimes are, by their definition, against the law. But let's make sure that the whole world knows, everybody in the United States knows, all the blue-collar Democrats out there know that Hillary Clinton and Martin O'Malley and Bernie Sanders and Barack Obama, what they really want when they say common sense gun control is confiscation. Not confiscation from somebody like Saeed Farouk or the next guy who wants to be Saeed Farouk because he got his guns breaking the law. They want guns from law-abiding citizens. That is all. That is all.